How would you approach it? Because as you mentioned, there was so much stress. There's so much studying for something that they're not going to be reusing again, right? And then I think, like you said, there's a lot of different variables where there's certain schools will, what's your GPA, what's your test score, you're in, you're not, and some will use that many different factors and variables. So if you had a chance to do it all over again with all this knowledge and wisdom.
Well, I don't know if I have wisdom. I have some information.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't think I would do anything differently because we let her decide what she wanted to do, because you can't, there's only so much you can do about the world. There's only so much impact you can have on the world. If she had wanted to go to a certain college or university that required it, then she was going to have to do it. But, we all do things we don't like. It's just, that's life. And you make a determination, what are those things that we're going to do that we don't like? And so we were going to let her make that decision.
That's great.
So that's kind of where we ended up.
And then what made you decide of naming your film? Besides, you could have just simply left the film title "The Test." That's plenty right there. But you added on "and the art of thinking." What inspired that?
I am glad you asked that question. I've probably done a couple of dozen interviews. No one has ever asked me that question. In fact, not in an interview, not in a Q&A. I don't think I've ever been asked that question.
Well, there's a lot of thought, and then the artwork in the title is very special and unique, and I think there's a reasoning behind there.
I appreciate you asking that. I've been waiting to speak to that question.
You just need someone from the school side to ask. That's why you've dealt with so many kids, that's all.
So we spent a lot of time on the title, and because the reason why we added that to the title is there is I think, socially and culturally, there is overwhelmingly the impression that the test, like an IQ test, measures thinking, that this is what thinking is supposed to be, because if you don't do well on this test, you're not going to that college.
Yeah.
To do well, to go to a top-tier college university, you have to be able to do well on this test.
Yeah.
And therefore, you have to be able to think the way it's asking you to think. And therefore, to a young, impressionable 16 or 17-year-old, there is, I think, built in a very powerful message that this method of thinking, so-called thinking, is what the world requires for success.
Yes.
And my view would be that that's not the case. That's really a question mark. That the kind of skill that's required for the test is, in my view, highly circumscribed. And it is a skill. It's a certain type of skill, but it is a very narrow skill set. And I would go so far as to say, I actually don't think that it is thinking at all. I actually think it's very mechanistic.
Yeah.
And so therefore, to me, it doesn't represent thinking capacity. And what's lost is you have young people, in effect, being given a message that this is thinking. This is how you're supposed to use your cognitive capacities.
Right.
And in fact, them abandoning their own natural cognitive capacities.
Yeah.
You know, we did an interview that didn't make in the film from a very prominent tech executive, and who's saying, we're talking about standardized tests. When you standardize something, you reduce it to its least value. So why would we want to have standardized tests? Right. You're reducing human cognitive capacity to its least, to its, let's say making it into a commodity.
Yes.
And so I think that's why it was important for us to introduce the idea, and hopefully there are people who haven't vocalized the question, but at least have wondered, why is that in the title? What is that reference to the art of thinking? What are they imagining that they would have put that into the title? They, the filmmakers.
Oh no, and right, because employers are asking for innovation,
What's
right?
that?
A lot of employers are asking for innovation, right, and being flexible, outside of the box thinking, and that is not what a test is asking. It's what's one of those 4 correct responses. And I think I appreciate you putting that out there, because I have so many students who will be so fixated on that number, because that's a number that gets publicized, a number that people just fixate on. And I know there's this movement also through some of the colleges called the character collaborative, where they're like, and why some schools are doing like the test option, because they're like, well, what can you do beyond your grades and your test scores? And when students take a pause and look at their art of thinking and could go beyond those limits, beautiful things happen. And there are colleges that will look beyond that test, for that. So I really appreciate that. So if they want to get access to this film, whether they're a school or a college or just a listener, how can they get to see the film?
I think the best place is go to our website, thetestdoc.org, O-R-G. We're putting up on the website all of our research that was required to make the film. There is a plethora of information on our website.
Okay. And you have a link of resources on there,
yes,
too, correct?
Yeah, we have a bibliography. We have a vast array. In fact, I'm not sure of any other location that has aggregated this much information about the test, the SAT and the ACT. And we're making that available. And so if you go to the website, it will direct you if you want to contact us. We're doing local screenings now, community screenings, school screenings, universities, many companies, test prep companies, and individuals actually are doing their own home screenings.
Great.
And then probably, it's now September, probably by February we'll probably be online in one of the major services.
Oh, fantastic. And then you're on Facebook and Twitter. So at the Test Doc, DOC on Twitter, hashtag the Test Documentary on Facebook, right? And then also on the Test Doc, DOC.org.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michael Arlen Davis, the director and producer of The Test and The Art of Thinking. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
That was great.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to College for All. We hope you enjoyed our podcast and learned that college is an opportunity you can reach. Use this information and you can find out even more on our website at college4all.com. And you can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at College for All AMV. Thank you for listening, and until our next podcast.